The battlefield was silent, except for the distant echoes of collapsing walls and the occasional roar of dying creatures. Smoke curled in the air, turning the twilight into a haze of gray and orange. The alien queen lay on the ground, her body battered, her armor shattered in places. She had fought with unmatched courage, but now, exhaustion clung to her like a shadow. Her vision blurred, and every breath came in painful, shallow gasps. She closed her eyes, accepting what she had long feared, death. Around her, the sounds of the battle faded. She could hear only her own heartbeat, slow and heavy, like a drum counting the moments she had left. Her enemies were closing in, and she knew that if she remained here, this would be her final hour. And then, she felt it, a soft, warm touch on her hand. Her eyes, still shut tight against the world, twitched in disbelief. Slowly, she opened them, only to find a human soldier kneeling beside her. His armor was scratched and bloodied, his face tired, but his eyes were sharp, focused on her. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. The human said nothing at first. He reached out again, gently lifting her hand. The queen stared at him, her mind racing. Humans were unpredictable. They were clever, dangerous, and often cruel. Why would one save her? Why would anyone risk their life to help her now? I can't let you die here," the human finally said. His voice was steady but soft, carrying an unexpected calmness amid the chaos around them. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the faintest spark of hope she hadn't felt in centuries. She had been betrayed before. She had trusted others, and it had cost her dearly. But something about this human made her pause. The queen tried to rise, but pain lanced through her side. She winced, falling back to the ground. The human noticed immediately. Without hesitation, he helped her sit up against a fallen wall. "We need to move," he said, scanning the battlefield. "They'll be back soon." Her instinct screamed that escape was impossible. The enemy forces were closing in fast, and the terrain was open, offering no real cover. Yet, for the first time in hours, she felt a glimmer of hope. This human was risking everything for her, and she couldn't understand why. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice trembling. He hesitated, then said simply, "Because it's the right thing to do." The alien queen had not heard such words in centuries. Most of her encounters with humans ended in conflict or betrayal. And yet, there was something in his tone, something honest and unwavering, that stirred a memory deep within her. A memory of trust, of courage, of times long past when she had believed in someone completely. They began to move slowly, the human guiding her through the ruins. Every step was a test. Rocks, rubble, and broken machinery made the path treacherous. Every sound in the distance, the faint clatter of boots, a low growl, a sudden shout, made them freeze in place, hearts hammering. "Keep low," he whispered. "They can see us from the ridges." She followed his instructions, her body stiff and sore. She noticed how careful he was, how he shielded her from view whenever possible. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had led armies, commanded fleets, and faced death countless times, but this felt different. As they moved through the battlefield, the queen tried to observe the human. He seemed ordinary at first glance, a simple soldier, nothing extraordinary, but the more she watched, the more she realized there was something extraordinary about him. The way he moved, the way he made decisions, the way he cared, it was unlike any human she had ever encountered. Suddenly, a distant explosion shook the ground. Dust and debris rained down around them. She was thrown to the side, scraping her arm, and pain shot through her body. The human was immediately at her side, supporting her. "Hold on," he said. "I won't let anything happen to you." For a moment, she allowed herself to lean against him. Trust, it was dangerous, almost foolish, but in that instant, she felt it. Something deep inside told her that survival, maybe even something greater, was possible if she could only follow him. They reached a narrow alley formed by collapsed walls. It was dimly lit, shadowed by the dying sun. Here, they could rest briefly. The queen sat down heavily, panting. The human knelt beside her, checking her wounds. "You've been hurt badly," he said quietly. "We need to get you somewhere safe." She shook her head weakly. "There is no safe place, not anymore." He looked at her with calm determination. "Then we'll make one." She almost laughed, almost. The absurdity of his words struck her. Make a safe place in the middle of a battlefield, surrounded by enemies? Impossible. Yet, she didn't dismiss him outright. There was something in the way he spoke, a conviction that seemed to defy the odds. Suddenly, movement in the shadows made them both freeze. A patrol of alien soldiers appeared, scanning the area. The queen instinctively reached for her weapon, but the human stopped her with a gentle hand. "Let me handle this," he whispered. Before she could protest, he stepped out from their cover, standing tall. The soldiers noticed him instantly, weapons raised. But the human didn't move recklessly. He used the terrain, the shadows, and every ounce of strategy he could muster. In a few tense moments, the soldiers were disoriented, and he had created an opening for them to escape. The queen's eyes widened in disbelief. She had expected humans to fight with brute force, not intelligence. And yet, here was one human, using cunning and courage to protect her. As they slipped away, the queen finally spoke, her voice low and measured. You are unlike any human I have ever met." He glanced at her, eyes steady. "And you are unlike any being I have ever met. I won't let you die here. Not like this." She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in centuries. It was not love, not yet, but it was trust and maybe something more. They moved in silence for a while, each lost in thought. The battlefield behind them was chaos, fire, and death, but ahead was uncertain. The queen knew that survival depended on many factors: her strength, the human skill, and the unpredictable mercy of fate. Suddenly, a scream cut through the night. The human froze, listening. The sound came from nearby, a wounded soldier, or worse, a trap? He didn't wait to decide. He pulled the queen behind a collapsed wall, shielding her from view. Her heart raced as the danger passed, but she felt something else too. A connection, fragile but real. She had accepted death just moments ago, but now, she had a reason to live. Someone cared for her, risked everything for her, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope. The human glanced at her, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. No words were spoken, but a silent understanding passed between them. Survival was not just about strength, it was about trust, courage, and the unexpected turns of fate. As they prepared to move again, the queen whispered, "I never thought I would need a human's help." He smiled faintly, a rare expression in the midst of war. "And I never thought I would find someone worth saving like you." For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Smoke and fire surrounded them, the sounds of battle still echoing in the distance. But in that moment, it didn't matter. They had found each other, and in a world filled with death and betrayal, that. A turning point neither had expected. And so, they moved forward, uncertain of what lay ahead, but together, for the first time, ready to face the impossible. The shadows of the ruined stronghold loomed over them, tall and broken like the skeletons of a world long dead. Smoke from the distant battlefield drifted through the air, carrying the acrid smell of fire and blood. The queen's body ached with every movement, but she kept pace with the human soldier. He moved cautiously, every step precise, as if he could feel danger lurking in the air like a predator waiting to strike. "You move quietly," the queen said, her voice low. She had always been a warrior, trained to sense danger. But this human, there was something different about him. He wasn't reckless, yet he seemed fearless. He glanced at her, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "I've had to be," he said simply. The queen studied him, trying to read the layers beneath his calm exterior. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but he carried a weight in his eyes, something he wasn't saying. She had faced countless enemies, but she had never encountered someone who could hide so much behind so little. "Why help me?" she asked again. Her voice was steadier now, though suspicion lingered. You could have left me to die. He hesitated, glancing toward the distant battlefield before answering. Because sometimes the right choice isn't easy. And sometimes it's personal. The Queen's curiosity piqued. Personal? For a human to risk everything for an alien queen, an enemy, no less, was extraordinary. She had lived long enough to know that loyalty was rare, and that most humans were guided by orders, not compassion. This one was different. They moved deeper into the ruins. The walls around them were crumbling, covered in scorch marks and deep gouges from weapons that could tear through steel. Every step echoed, and every shadow seemed alive. The Queen felt the old instinct she had used countless times in battle, the instinct to anticipate danger, to strike before being struck. A sudden noise made both of them freeze. A small piece of rubble shifted underfoot. From the corner of her eye, the Queen saw a figure dart across the far end of the alley. She tensed, ready to strike, but the human placed a hand on her shoulder, stopping her. "Not yet," he whispered. "Let me see first." He stepped forward, cautiously, and peered into the shadows. A lone scout, human or alien, had been spying on them. With precise movements, the soldier subdued the scout, dragging them into the darkness, without a sound. The Queen's eyes widened. "You did that silently." "How?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. Years of practice. Years of necessity. Sometimes, survival depends on what people don't see. They continued through the ruins, the tension between them growing heavier with each step. The Queen could feel it, the human had secrets. And every instinct, she had screamed that those secrets were dangerous. But she couldn't stop thinking about the hand he had placed on hers, the way he had saved her. Finally, they reached a small room hidden within the ruins. Broken walls provided cover from the remaining patrols. The human lowered her gently to the ground, and she sat back against the cold stone, exhausted. "You're hiding something," she said, studying him carefully. "I can feel it," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I am. But not now. Not until we're safe." The Queen narrowed her eyes. "Safe? Do you think anywhere is safe right now?" He met her gaze and, for the first time, showed a hint of vulnerability. "No. But we'll try. That's all we can do." For a moment, silence fell between them. The distant sounds of battle were muffled here, but the danger felt closer than ever. And yet, in that silence, the Queen felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. Tentative, fragile, but real. She studied him again. "What do you want from me? Why are you really here?" He hesitated, and then, in a voice low and deliberate, said, "I was sent to stop you. To end the Queen, who has led the aliens for centuries." But he paused, searching her eyes. "I saw you, and I saw something else. Something worth protecting." The Queen's mind raced. Betrayal was all she had ever known from humans. She had been hunted, attacked, and deceived countless times. And yet, here was one human, risking everything for her. Could it be possible that not all of them were the same? Before she could ask more, a loud crash shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the human immediately moved in front of her, drawing a small weapon from his belt. "Stay behind me," he commanded. The Queen obeyed, watching as he scanned the shadows. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the faint light from the outside. It was humanoid, but she couldn't tell friend from foe. The human raised his weapon, tension radiating from his every movement. The figure stopped. "You're leaving," it said, voice calm but edged with warning. The human stepped forward. "And if I am?" The figure tilted its head, studying them. "You can't escape. Not with her." The Queen's heart sank. She knew that tone. It was the same tone of those who had come before, those who thought they could control her, dictate her fate. And yet the human did not flinch. He stood firm, shielded her with his body, and refused to yield. "Then we'll fight," he said simply. The figure's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the shadow melted back into the ruins. The Queen exhaled slowly. She had expected fear, panic, but instead, she felt something else, admiration. For centuries, she had led armies, commanded entire fleets, and faced death countless times. But never had she seen courage like this. Calm, precise, unwavering. As they prepared to move again, the queen finally allowed herself to speak, voice soft but steady. "You are brave, maybe too brave for your own good." He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "Maybe, but it's the only way to survive." For hours, they navigated the ruins, moving silently through shadows and rubble. The human led her to hidden paths, avoiding patrols and scavengers alike. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. And the queen, though weakened, began to understand something she had long forgotten: hope. Finally, they reached a small underground chamber. It was damp, dark, and narrow, but it offered temporary safety. The human helped her inside, and they both sank to the ground, exhausted. "You should rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." The queen shook her head. "No. We need to plan our next move. We can't just hide here forever." He nodded. "Agreed. But for now, we need to survive tonight." They sat in silence, the distant sounds of the battlefield echoing faintly above them. And as the queen watched the human, she realized something astonishing. He wasn't just a soldier, not just a human. He was something more, a symbol of hope, a force of unexpected courage, and perhaps the turning point she hadn't known she needed. And then, without warning, a faint noise came from the shadows behind them. Something moved, soft, deliberate, dangerous. The queen's instinct screamed that they were not alone. The human immediately positioned himself in front of her, weapon ready. His eyes scanned the darkness, sharp and alert. "Stay close," he whispered. A shadow stepped forward. And then another. They were surrounded. The human and the queen exchanged a quick, knowing glance. The fight was not over, it had only just begun. And in that moment, the queen realized something that made her heart tighten. Survival would not only require strength and skill, it would require trust. Trust in a human she barely knew, and trust in a future that seemed impossible. Her hand brushed against his for the first time since the battlefield, a silent acknowledgement. Together, they would face the coming storm. Together, they might just survive. The underground chamber was dark, damp, and cramped. Every shadow seemed alive, shifting as the faint light flickered from a crack in the ceiling. The queen's muscles ached, and her wounds throbbed painfully, but her mind was sharper than ever. Danger was close, closer than she had ever felt in centuries of battle. The human soldier crouched beside her, scanning the shadows, every sense alert. His hand rested on the hilt of a small, strange-looking weapon. The queen had seen many kinds of weapons in her life, but this one was different, silent, precise, and deadly. "They're out there," he whispered. "And they're not alone." The queen tensed. Her instincts screamed danger. She had faced armies, monsters, and assassins, yet the feeling creeping over her now was different. This wasn't just a battle of strength, it was a hunt, a game of shadows where one wrong move could mean death. Suddenly, a faint scraping sound echoed from the corner. The human stiffened. His eyes narrowed, scanning every inch of the chamber. "Move," he hissed. Quietly. The queen followed him, keeping low. Every step was calculated, every movement silent. She noticed the careful way he led her, choosing paths where debris would not betray them. It was a skill she respected, but she had never seen such careful precision in a human. Most of her encounters with them had been chaotic, violent, reckless. But he was different. They crept toward a side tunnel, hidden behind rubble. The passage was narrow, forcing them to move single file. Dust and stones shifted underfoot, but neither made a sound. Halfway through the tunnel, the queen stumbled on a loose stone. Pain shot through her side, and she almost fell. The human caught her immediately, steadying her. "Careful," he whispered, his eyes scanning ahead. She gave him a faint nod, though her heart pounded in her chest. She had trusted many before, and been betrayed, but now, she couldn't deny that she trusted him. Not fully, perhaps, but enough to move forward. As they emerged from the tunnel, the ruined city stretched before them. Buildings lay in ruins, streets cracked and littered with debris. Fires burned in the distance, casting an eerie orange glow over the destruction. The battlefield was behind them, but danger was still all around. The human led her through the streets, staying in shadows, avoiding open spaces. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every alley could be a trap. The queen followed silently, keeping her senses alert. "They're tracking us," he said finally. "I can feel it. Someone's following." Her eyes narrowed. "Why don't they attack directly? Why follow silently?" He shook his head. "It's a test. They want to see how far we'll go, how we react under pressure. The moment we slip, they strike." The queen gritted her teeth. "Clever. But they underestimate me." Hours passed as they navigated the ruins, moving from shadow to shadow. The queen observed the human closely. Every time he glanced behind them, every careful step he took, there was something meticulous, calculated. She realized that this man was not just skilled, he was experienced, perhaps more than she had assumed. They reached a collapsed bridge spanning a wide chasm. The human paused, looking across the broken structure. "We have to cross," he said. "No other way." The queen studied the gap. It was wide, jagged, and treacherous. One misstep, and they would plummet into darkness below. Her side ached painfully with every movement, but she knew there was no choice. "Lead the way," she said. He nodded, moving carefully across the crumbling bridge. Stones shifted beneath his feet, and small rocks fell into the darkness below. The queen followed, each step a battle between pain and survival. Her heart pounded, adrenaline mixing with fear. Halfway across, a loud crack echoed through the ruins. A section of the bridge gave way beneath her feet. She froze, dangling dangerously over the edge. The human lunged, grabbing her arm with a strength that seemed impossible. He pulled her back onto solid ground. "Thank you," she breathed, her chest heaving. I almost." "Don't think about it," he interrupted. "Keep moving." Finally, they reached the other side, the bridge behind them crumbling completely. The queen exhaled, pain and relief mingling in her chest. They were not safe, not yet, but at least they had made progress. As they moved through the city, the queen noticed something strange. Many of the streets were empty, too empty. Buildings showed signs of recent activity, footprints, broken doors, but no one was around. Her instincts screamed that they were being watched. "Something's wrong," she murmured. The human nodded. "I feel it too. Stay close." Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows. Both froze. Eyes glinted in the darkness, reflecting the firelight from afar. Creatures, not human, not alien, but something in between, emerged. Their limbs were twisted, faces hidden beneath grotesque masks, eyes burning with intelligence and hunger. The queen's hand instinctively went to her weapon, but the human stopped her. "Not yet," he whispered. The creatures moved closer, their steps silent, deliberate. It was clear they were hunting, and their target was the queen. The human scanned the area quickly, then whispered, "We'll use the ruins. Stay with me." They darted into a narrow alley, moving swiftly but silently. The creatures followed, not making a sound, not giving up. Every turn, every shadow, was a potential trap. The queen realized that the human skills weren't just training, they were instinct, honed by countless similar encounters. Finally, they reached a partially destroyed building. The human lifted her carefully through a broken window, helping her onto the upper floor. They crouched behind debris, breathing heavily. "They'll keep coming," he said. "We can't stay here long." The queen nodded, scanning the room. Old furniture, shattered walls, and piles of rubble offered minimal cover. She realized that escape alone would not be enough. They needed strategy. "Tell me your secret," she said suddenly. "Why are you helping me? What aren't you telling me?" The human's eyes darkened. "You don't want to know," he said quietly. "I do," she insisted. "I have survived countless battles, betrayals, and wars. I need to know the truth." He sighed, running a hand over his face. "I was sent to kill you," he admitted. "But when I saw you, something changed. I couldn't do it. And now, I have to make sure you survive, no matter the cost. The queen stared at him, stunned. For centuries, she had believed humans were predictable, dangerous, and loyal only to themselves. And now, this one human had defied everything she thought she knew. Before she could speak again, a sudden crash from below made both of them freeze. The creatures had found them. The floor trembled as their heavy footsteps echoed through the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. The human pulled her close. Stay low. Follow my lead. They moved quickly, descending through a hidden passage that led to the sewers beneath the city. The foul smell and darkness were suffocating, but it offered the cover they needed. Every step was tense, every sound amplified. The creatures were close, but for now, they had lost them. As they navigated the labyrinth of tunnels, the queen finally allowed herself to speak. You're risking everything for me, and you weren't even supposed to. Why? He looked at her, eyes steady. Because sometimes the right choice isn't about orders. It's about doing what's right. The queen felt a strange warmth in her chest. Trust, hope, and even something more fragile, gratitude, mixed together. She had accepted death moments ago, but now she had a reason to fight. Hours passed as they moved through the sewers. Finally, they emerged near the edge of the city, where the ruins ended and the dark forests began. The night was quiet, but the air was heavy with tension. Danger had not passed, they could feel it, but they had survived another trial. The queen looked at the human, her voice soft but determined. I may not understand you yet, but I know this. If we are to survive, we need each other. He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Agreed. But whatever happens next, it won't be easy. As they stepped into the forest, shadows moved behind the trees. Eyes glinted in the darkness, watching, waiting. And the queen realized that the journey ahead would test not only their strength but their trust, their courage, and the bond that had begun to form between them. The forest was alive with shadows, each tree a silent witness to their struggle. The queen's breath came in ragged gasps, pain from her wounds making each step a challenge. The human soldier moved with careful precision, eyes scanning the darkness, muscles tense. He knew danger could strike from any direction. They're waiting for us, the queen said softly, her voice almost lost in the whispering wind. The human didn't answer immediately. He tightened his grip on her hand, a silent reassurance. Yes, he said finally, but we'll make it. We have to. They moved cautiously through the underbrush, branches scraping their faces and tearing their clothes. The queen could feel the tension in every nerve of the human beside her. This was not just skill. It was experience, honed from battles she could only imagine. Why do you care? She asked after a long silence. You don't owe me anything. You were sent to kill me. And yet here you are. The human glanced at her, shadows flickering across his face. Because sometimes the choice isn't about orders or missions, he said softly. Sometimes it's about what you know is right. And saving you, it feels right. The queen studied him. She had known betrayal, cruelty, and the sting of deception her entire life. But there was something different here, a fragile honesty, a willingness to risk everything for someone else. She wasn't sure if she could trust him fully, but she had no choice. Survival demanded partnership. Hours passed as they navigated deeper into the forest. Moonlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting silver patterns across the ground. The queen noticed subtle signs of pursuit, broken branches, footprints partially hidden in the soil. Whoever was following them was careful, patient, and relentless. Finally, they reached a small clearing. A stream ran quietly through the center, the water reflecting the pale moonlight. The queen sank to the ground, exhaustion pulling her down like a heavy weight. We can rest here, the human said, kneeling beside her. But only for a short while. She nodded, closing her eyes. The moment her body relaxed, pain and fatigue washed over her. For centuries, she had endured countless battles, yet this human's presence and his unwavering protection made the world feel less hostile, less cold. Minutes passed in tense silence. The forest seemed calm, almost deceptively so. The queen finally opened her eyes. "Tell me about yourself," she said quietly. He looked surprised.
Why?
"You hardly know me." "I need to know who I am trusting," she said firmly. "Not just a soldier, but the man who saved me." The human exhaled slowly. "I grew up on the edge of the colonies. Life was harsh. I learned to survive, to fight, to never trust blindly. Then I joined the forces. Orders were clear. Follow instructions, no questions asked. That's how I lived until now." He paused, his gaze falling to the flowing stream. "When I was sent after you, I expected nothing. I thought it would be just another mission. But seeing what you endured, and how you fought, I couldn't do it. I couldn't let you die. So I made a choice. And now here we are." The queen's chest tightened. She had seen countless humans who followed orders without question, their loyalty bought with fear or promises. But this one, he had defied everything he had been taught, risking his life, choosing a path no one could force him to take. "I don't fully understand you," she said softly, "but I can see you are different. Perhaps the only human I have ever met who can be trusted." He offered a faint smile, a rare expression in the shadowed night. "Perhaps. But trust is fragile. One wrong move, one mistake, and it's gone." Their quiet moment was broken by a sudden rustling in the underbrush. Both froze. The forest, which had seemed calm, now felt alive with unseen eyes. The human reached instinctively for his weapon, and the queen braced herself. A figure emerged from the shadows, another human soldier, dressed in dark armor, with weapons drawn. The queen's heart raced. Was this an enemy? A friend? Orders were unclear in the shifting chaos of war. The approaching soldier stopped a few feet away, eyes darting between them. "I thought I'd find you here," he said cautiously. "You've been moving fast, too fast." The queen's hand went to her weapon instinctively, but the human beside her placed a gentle hand on her arm, stopping her. "Wait," he whispered. The approaching soldier studied them for a long moment, then spoke again. "I was sent to retrieve her." "You?" His gaze fell on the human beside her. "You're not supposed to be here." The queen realized the truth immediately. Orders were in conflict. Loyalties tangled. Humans had rules, missions, chains of command, and now those chains were snapping around them. The human beside her met her eyes. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly. For a moment, the queen hesitated. Every instinct screamed caution, every memory screamed danger. And yet she nodded. "I trust you." With a swift movement, the human disarmed the approaching soldier, using precise skill and calculated force. The other human struggled, but he was overpowered quickly. The queen's heart raced as adrenaline surged through her. For the first time in hours, she felt the raw reality of survival. Trust, skill, and quick thinking could mean the difference between life and death. After subduing the soldier, they bound him with strips of torn cloth. The queen looked at the human beside her, admiration mixing with relief. "You saved me again." He shook his head. "We saved each other." The captured soldier struggled and spat on the ground. "You think this ends with just the two of you? You have no idea what's coming." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Try me." A tense silence followed. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the stream's gentle flow could not mask the tension. Every shadow, every sound, carried the possibility of attack. Finally, the human spoke.
"He's right.
We don't have long. We need to move before more of them arrive. And the forest, it won't protect us forever." The queen rose slowly, still weak from her injuries, but determination burned in her eyes. "Then we move," she said firmly.
Together.
"No matter what comes." They left the captured soldier tied to a tree, moving swiftly through the underbrush. The queen followed closely, trusting the human's lead. Every step carried risk, but she had learned something crucial. Survival required more than strength. It required trust, strategy, and an understanding that sometimes one's enemies could also teach lessons in loyalty and courage. Hours later, they reached a cliff overlooking a valley. Below, the ruins of a human settlement stretched into the distance, abandoned but intact. The valley offered temporary refuge, a place to rest and plan. But even from here, the queen could feel the eyes of unseen hunters. The forest was never truly empty, and danger was always patient. The human knelt beside her, pointing toward the valley. "We rest there," he said softly, "just long enough to regain strength. Then we move again. The enemy will keep coming." The queen nodded, pain and exhaustion battling with determination. "And if they catch us?" He looked at her, his eyes steady and unwavering. "Then we fight. And we survive. Together." For the first time in centuries, the queen allowed herself to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not naive hope, but the kind that comes from knowing that, even in the darkest hours, someone stands beside you. Someone willing to risk everything. As the night deepened, they made camp among the rocks, the valley below quiet and still. The queen tended to her wounds as best she could, while the human kept watch. Their bond, fragile yet real, grew stronger with each passing moment. But neither could shake the feeling that this fragile alliance would soon be tested. Somewhere in the darkness, enemies were moving, watching, waiting. And the queen knew that survival, true survival, would demand more than courage. It would demand sacrifice, strategy, and trust that could not be broken. The queen looked at the human beside her, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. "I don't know if I can fully trust anyone," she admitted quietly. He smiled faintly. "Then start with me. One step at a time." She nodded, feeling the first real sense of partnership she had ever known. Together, they would face whatever came next, because alone, neither could survive. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes glinted. Observing. Waiting. The real threat was still out there, patient and relentless. But for now, the fragile alliance had survived another night. The moon hung high above the valley, casting long silver shadows across the broken ruins below. The queen and the human crouched behind a jagged boulder, hearts pounding. The shadows from the trees twisted in the wind, making the forest feel alive. They had survived ambushes, creatures, and relentless hunters, but now a new danger loomed, one far more insidious than any they had faced. The captured soldier from earlier had vanished. No trace remained of him, not even footprints. The queen's instinct screamed that something was wrong. Humans could be cunning. They followed orders, but some followed hidden agendas. Perhaps he had sent reinforcements, or worse, betrayed them. The human beside her noticed the change in her expression. "What is it?" he whispered. "There's a traitor among us," she said, her voice low but sharp. "I can feel it. Someone is tracking us, closer than we realize." He frowned. "A traitor? Among who?" "Among humans or maybe someone else," she replied. "We've been careful, yet somehow they know our path." The queen had lived centuries, led armies, and fought wars, but betrayal was a danger she had never fully escaped. She had trusted soldiers, generals, and advisors, only to discover that loyalty often wore the mask of convenience. Now, the fear of betrayal clawed at her, but she could not hesitate. They moved cautiously through the forest, sticking to shadows and avoiding open spaces. Each rustle of leaves, each snapping twig made them freeze. Their senses were heightened, alert to even the smallest sign of danger. Hours passed. They reached a clearing with a small, abandoned cabin at its center. Smoke rose faintly from a broken chimney, evidence that someone had been here recently. The queen motioned for silence, and they crept closer. Inside the cabin, a figure crouched over a map, whispering into a communication device. The queen and the human exchanged glances. It was him, the soldier, who had disappeared. And he was not alone. Behind him, two more humans appeared, armed and ready. "He's leading them," the queen said softly. "He's the traitor." The human beside her's jaw tightened. "I thought he was just following orders. I didn't expect this." The queen drew a small, concealed blade from her belt, her movements fluid despite her pain. "Then we stop him," she said firmly. before he reaches more people, or worse, finds us first. They approached silently, using the trees for cover. The trader's attention was entirely on his communication device, unaware of the shadows moving around him. The human whispered instructions. I'll handle the ones outside. You focus on him. Strike quickly. No mistakes. The queen nodded. Betrayal could not be forgiven. She had learned long ago that hesitation meant death. She slipped inside the cabin, moving like a shadow herself. The traitor spoke into his device, unaware of her presence. His face was twisted in anger and cunning, a stark contrast to the fear he would soon feel. Orders are clear, he said. Capture the queen alive. Neutralize anyone in my way. Her blade moved silently through the air. In one swift motion, it was at his throat. He froze, eyes widening in disbelief. The queen's presence, her strength, and her determination struck him like a lightning bolt. You betrayed your own, she said coldly. For what? Power? Recognition? You'll find that loyalty cannot be bought with fear. Before he could react, the human entered the cabin, swiftly disarming the two guards outside. The fight was over in seconds, precise and efficient. The traitor fell to his knees, defeated and gasping. The queen's eyes were icy. Speak, she demanded. Why betray us? He sneered, defiance flickering even in defeat. Orders. I follow orders. You'll see soon enough. You won't survive. No one does. The human glared at him. You're done. Your choices end here. The queen kept her blade steady. Leave him here, she said. But mark my words. Betrayal will not go unanswered. And if anyone else dares, her voice trailed, sharp as a knife. The traitor's eyes widened in fear for the first time. The queen's centuries of experience, her authority, and her calm menace were terrifying in equal measure. As they left the cabin, moving deeper into the forest, the queen's mind was racing. Betrayal was worse than any external threat. An enemy outside could be fought, predicted, and defeated. But someone within, someone who knew them, tracked them, was unpredictable, dangerous, and capable of ruining everything. The human beside her noticed the tension in her shoulders. It's not just him, he said quietly. You're right. We need to be careful. There may be others we don't know about. The queen nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness. Trust, it's fragile. And yet, we must rely on each other. Otherwise, we die. They continued through the forest, the weight of the night pressing down on them. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified. The rustle of leaves, the snap of branches, the distant cry of creatures lurking unseen. Hours later, they reached a small river cutting through the forest. The moonlight reflected on the water, and the queen finally allowed herself to rest for a moment. The human checked their surroundings, his eyes sharp, movements fluid. We should follow the river, he said. It will lead us to safer ground. But we need to stay alert. The traitor may have allies, or worse, sent others. The queen nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. Betrayal from within, it's worse than any battle I've fought. It's unpredictable, insidious. But we survive. We adapt. We fight back. As they followed the river, the human glanced at her. I've never met someone like you, he said quietly. Even injured, even hunted, you keep going. You inspire strength, not just in me, but in everyone who follows you. The queen's lips pressed into a thin line. Compliments were rare in her life, trust even rarer. And yet, something in his words resonated. For centuries, she had fought alone, relied on no one. Now, she felt the faintest glimmer of partnership, of understanding, and yes, trust. The forest grew denser, the darkness pressing in around them. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a potential threat. The queen's instincts told her they were being followed again, though no sound or movement confirmed it. Suddenly, a rustling in the underbrush to their right. Both froze. The human raised his weapon, and the queen crouched low, blade ready. From the shadows, a figure emerged, not human, not fully alien, but something in between. Its eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, watching, calculating. The queen's breath caught. They've been tracking us, not just humans. Others too. The human nodded, eyes sharp. We need to move.
Now.
They ran, following the river through the forest. Branches whipped across their faces, roots tangled underfoot, and every step was dangerous. Yet they moved with purpose, with a rhythm forged from necessity. Each moment tested their endurance, their skill, and their fragile alliance. Hours later, they reached a ridge overlooking the valley below. Fires burned faintly in the distance, signs of camps, patrols, and activity. The queen studied the landscape, mind racing. Survival was possible, but only if they remained vigilant, careful, and united. She turned to the human beside her. We can't let betrayal dictate our fate. We must be stronger, smarter, and more prepared. Together. He nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Together. No matter what comes next. The queen looked into the darkness, feeling the weight of centuries, the sting of betrayal, and the fragile thread of hope. Trust had been tested, loyalty questioned, but for now, they survived. And in this fleeting moment of peace, she realized something profound. Even in a world filled with enemies, betrayal, and uncertainty, there could be bonds that endured, if they were strong enough to fight for them. The valley below was alive with movement. Shadows stretched across the ground, shifting as figures emerged from the darkness. The distant horn had sounded the beginning of something unavoidable, a massive force, organized and relentless, advancing toward them. The queen and the human crouched behind a ridge, their breath shallow, hearts pounding. They've called reinforcements, the human whispered, eyes scanning the approaching figures. More than we've ever faced before. The queen's gaze swept across the valley. Flames flickered from torches, reflecting off the armor of soldiers and creatures alike. They moved with precision, coordinated, and disciplined. Every instinct she had screamed danger. This was no longer a hunt, it was a siege. We can't outrun them, the queen said softly. Not across open ground. We have to fight. The human nodded. Agreed. But we need a plan. They outnumber us, and they're prepared. We need to use the terrain, use shadows, and make every move count. Together, they surveyed the ridge. Rocks, fallen trees, and ruined walls offered potential cover. Narrow paths could funnel enemies, creating choke points. The queen's mind raced, calculating, strategizing. She had faced armies before, but never with such unpredictability. Human reinforcements, alien creatures, unknown trackers. Survival depended on skill, cunning, and trust. The first wave of attackers appeared on the edge of the forest. Figures in dark armor moved with deadly precision, creatures lurking behind them. The queen tensed, gripping her blade. The human raised his weapon, eyes narrow, ready for the first strike. Stay close, he whispered. Move only when I give the signal. The attackers advanced slowly, cautious, aware that someone, or something, was waiting for them. And then, without warning, the human sprang from cover, firing his weapon with uncanny precision. Shadows fell, figures stumbled, and chaos erupted among the enemy lines. The queen leapt into action beside him. Her movements were fluid, deadly precise. She had fought thousands, led fleets, commanded armies, but never had she felt this surge of adrenaline, this sharp focus born not just from duty, but from trust. They moved as one, a silent, unstoppable force. The queen struck with her blade, every move calculated to disable, not just kill. The human covered her, his weapon silent but lethal, striking down enemies with efficiency that left no room for error. Yet the numbers were overwhelming. More enemies surged forward, pushing them back toward the valley. The queen's side throbbed with pain, her energy waning. Every step was harder than the last, but she could not stop.
Not now.
Not when the human's presence anchored her, gave her strength she had thought lost forever. A group of creatures emerged from the shadows, faster, more vicious than before. Their glowing eyes burned with intelligence and hunger. The human reacted instantly, firing with precision, but one creature lunged at the queen. She dodged just in time, rolling across the rocky ground, pain lancing through her side. The human was at her side in an instant. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. "I can manage," she said, rising to her feet. "We fight." The enemy advanced relentlessly, and the queen realized they could not simply hold the ridge. They needed a decisive strike, a move that would change the battle. "There," she whispered, pointing toward a narrow canyon. "We can funnel them, force them into a trap. If we hold the high ground, we can level the odds." The human nodded, understanding immediately. "Lead the way. I'll cover you." They sprinted toward the canyon, shadows following closely. The enemy pursued, confident, disciplined, unaware of the trap awaiting them. The queen reached the canyon's edge, signaling the human. Rocks, debris, and fallen trees lay perfectly positioned. With a surge of strength, she pushed a massive boulder down the slope. The human fired into the advancing lines, precision shots scattering the enemy. Chaos erupted. The boulder crushed soldiers, blocked paths, and created confusion among the enemy ranks. The creatures roared in frustration, but the queen and the human pressed forward, striking with speed and accuracy. Every movement was synchronized, born of trust, skill, and instinct. Yet victory was not assured. Reinforcements continued to arrive from the shadows, their numbers pressing, relentless. The queen felt fatigue threatening to overwhelm her. Her wounds burned, her breath came in ragged gasps. But she could not stop.
Not now.
Not when the human's determination mirrored her own. They fought side by side, a force unmatched. The queen's blade moved like lightning, striking with precision, parrying attacks before they could land. The human covered her, silent and deadly, his weapon striking true at every threat. Together, they became a storm, unstoppable, relentless, united. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the enemy ranks, a leader, taller, armored, eyes glowing with fury. The queen recognized him immediately, the traitor's superior, the one who had orchestrated the ambush. He carried an aura of authority and menace, moving with calculated power. "This ends now," the human whispered. "Stay close." The queen's eyes narrowed. "I will face him," she said, her voice steel. "You cover the others." With a nod, the human split from her, taking on the advancing waves of enemies. The queen advanced toward the leader, each step measured, her mind focused entirely on the confrontation. The enemy commander raised his weapon, and the clash was immediate, blade against blade, strength against strength, skill against skill. They fought like titans, each strike echoing across the valley. Sparks flew, metal clashed, and the ground beneath them shook. Pain coursed through the queen's body, but she pressed forward, driven by determination and the knowledge that the human survival, and perhaps her own, depended on this fight. The enemy leader struck with brutal force, but the queen anticipated, countering with a swift, precise strike. A flash of pain shot through her arm, but she did not falter. Her eyes burned with fury, with centuries of experience, and with the bond she had formed with the human who had saved her life. Meanwhile, the human fought fiercely, covering every approach, every angle, his focus absolute. Enemies fell, creatures screamed, and chaos reigned. But his eyes never left the queen. Every moment, every breath, was synchronized with her actions. They were no longer just individuals. They were a single unit, unstoppable and precise. The battle reached its peak. The enemy leader struck one final blow, aiming to end the queen's life. But she anticipated the strike, sidestepping with agility she hadn't thought she possessed. Her blade sliced through the air, finding its mark. The enemy leader fell, stunned, and the remaining forces faltered. The queen and the human stood together, panting, bloodied, and exhausted. Around them, the battlefield was chaos, but victory was within reach. Their enemies hesitated, realizing the tide had turned. The bond between the queen and the human was unbreakable, forged through trust, courage, and shared struggle. With one final coordinated strike, They overwhelmed the remaining forces. Silence fell over the valley. The fires burned low, and shadows retreated into the darkness. The queen and the human stood side by side, victorious but wary. The queen looked at him, her eyes softening for the first time in centuries. "We survived together." He nodded, exhausted but triumphant.
Yes.
Together. For a moment, the world felt still. Victory was theirs, but the scars, physical and emotional, would linger. The queen realized that survival was more than strength or skill. It was trust, courage, and the willingness to rely on another. And for the first time, she felt something she had thought lost forever: hope. But in the distance, beyond the valley, a faint glow appeared. New forces were gathering, unknown, waiting, relentless. The battle was won, but the war, the larger struggle, was far from over. The roar echoed through the mountains, shaking the valley and rattling the broken ruins around them. The queen's heart tightened. She had survived ambushes, betrayal, and relentless hunters, but this was something different. Something ancient. Something beyond the battlefield she had known her entire life. The human soldier beside her tightened his grip on his weapon, eyes scanning the shadows. He had been calm through every trial, but even he felt the weight of what was coming. "We need to move," he said quietly. "Whatever that is, it's coming for us." The queen nodded, her side aching from old wounds, her muscles screaming in protest. But she pushed forward, every step fueled by determination and trust, the trust that had grown between them, fragile yet unbreakable. They moved through the valley cautiously, every shadow seeming alive, every sound amplified. The glow from the distant mountains pulsed, faint but ominous. They were not just being pursued, they were being hunted by something far older, far more powerful than any human or alien force they had faced. Hours passed, and the valley grew darker. The glow from the mountains intensified, revealing shapes that were impossible to describe. Massive, serpentine figures emerged from the mist, eyes like molten gold, bodies coiled and shimmering with a strange energy. The queen's instincts screamed danger unlike anything she had felt in centuries. "They're ancient," she whispered, awe and fear mingling in her voice. "Creatures older than armies, older than planets." The humans studied them, jaw tight. "And they're aware of us. We need a plan, fast." The queen's mind raced. She had faced invaders, assassins, and armies, but these beings were not simply soldiers. They were predators, intelligent and deliberate. To survive, they needed strategy, cunning, and precision. "We'll use the canyon," she said finally. "The terrain. We funnel them, force them into a bottleneck. It's our only chance." The human nodded. "Lead the way. I'll cover you." They ran through the forest, moving with speed and caution. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping branch, could reveal their position. Behind them, the massive creatures glided through the mist, silent yet unstoppable. Their roar had faded, replaced by a slow, deliberate approach, a predator confident in its hunt. The queen and the human reached the canyon. It was narrow, jagged, and steep, but it offered the advantage they needed. Rocks and debris could be pushed to block the path, creating choke points. They positioned themselves strategically, waiting for the creatures to enter. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, faint movement appeared at the canyon entrance. The creatures had arrived. Their massive forms slithered and coiled, their eyes glowing in the dim light. The queen's hand went to her blade, her breath steady despite the fear gripping her chest. The human beside her raised his weapon. "On my signal," he whispered. The creatures advanced slowly, testing the canyon. One stepped forward, massive and intelligent, its gaze fixed on them. The queen felt a strange connection, a recognition of life, of survival. Yet, instinct screamed danger. "Now," the human shouted. Rocks and debris tumbled down the canyon, creating a partial blockade. The creatures hissed, frustrated but not deterred. They moved with cunning, calculating every step. The queen struck with precision, disabling smaller enemies, while the human covered the flanks. The battle was unlike any they had fought. The creatures were fast, intelligent, and almost otherworldly. Every strike required strategy. Every movement counted. The queen realized that brute force alone would not work. They needed synergy, trust, and unity. Hours of intense combat passed. The queen and the human moved as one, covering each other, striking with precision. Wounds and exhaustion slowed them, but determination fueled every action. Finally, the largest creature lunged at the queen, massive jaws snapping. The human reacted instantly, firing a weapon that stunned the beast momentarily. The queen seized the moment, striking a precise blow to the creature's neck, exploiting its momentary weakness. The creature fell with a deafening roar, shaking the canyon. The remaining creatures hesitated, unsure, their coordinated hunt disrupted. The queen and the human pressed forward, striking decisively, using every advantage of the terrain. Silence finally fell over the canyon. The creatures retreated into the mountains, leaving the valley empty and quiet. The queen and the human collapsed to the ground, exhausted, wounded, but alive. The queen looked at him, her chest heaving. "We survived together," she said, voice soft but filled with awe. He smiled faintly, exhaustion etched on his face.
Yes.
Together. Against impossible odds. For a long moment, they rested, the adrenaline fading, replaced by relief and the realization of what they had accomplished. The queen studied the human beside her. His bravery, skill, and unwavering support had saved her countless times. And more than that, he had taught her something she had not expected: trust. "I never thought I'd rely on a human," she admitted quietly. "And yet, I do. I trust you." He reached out, brushing a hand gently against hers. "And I trust you. More than anyone I've ever known." For the first time in centuries, the queen allowed herself to feel something deeper than survival. She had faced death countless times, but now she felt hope, companionship, and even something fragile: love. The valley below was calm, yet the distant mountains still pulsed with an ominous glow. The queen knew their journey was far from over. Forces beyond imagination still existed, watching, waiting. But for now, they had survived. Together. Against all odds. As dawn broke, casting golden light across the valley, the queen stood, bloodied but resolute. The human stood beside her, ready for whatever lay ahead. They had faced betrayal, relentless enemies, and ancient predators, and emerged stronger, united, and alive. The queen's eyes softened as she looked at him. Perhaps this is what survival truly means. Not strength alone, but trust, loyalty, and the courage to face the unknown with someone by your side. He nodded, eyes meeting hers. "And perhaps, together, we can face anything." The roar of the mountains faded, replaced by the quiet whispers of the valley. Shadows receded, danger had passed for now. The queen and the human took a deep breath, acknowledging the bond that had formed in fire, blood, and fear. They were more than survivors now. They were allies, partners, and something more. In the face of impossible odds, they had found redemption and revelation. The queen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the human's hand brush hers gently. She had accepted death countless times, but now she had found life. And in that life, she had found someone worth trusting, worth fighting for, and perhaps worth more than she had ever imagined. The sun rose fully over the valley, illuminating the ruins, the canyon, and the forest beyond. For the queen and the human, a new day had begun. A day of survival, trust, and unexpected hope. And for the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond battle, beyond betrayal, and beyond fear. They had faced the impossible, survived the unimaginable, and forged a bond stronger than any enemy could break. Together, they would face whatever came next, because in a world of darkness and danger, trust, loyalty, and courage were the only weapons that truly mattered.